All righty, that is Europe with Final Countdown. And my name is Louis Herms with Screwbig Gov News, Views, and Conspiracies. Please do us a favor, like, follow, share. And before we get to our awesome guest, that you will figure out real quick that that song may be appropriate to the discussion that we have. I just want to give a big thank you to Verity Metals, veritymetals.com. Phone number 480-717-9081. They are helping sponsor the Unity Tour, helping us out here at Screw Big Gov. So we really appreciate them. They will take care of you, I promise. So go to veritymetals.com or call them directly, 480-717-9081. Get your silver, get your gold, flip your IRAs, whatever you need to do. Matt over there is a wonderful gentleman. Gives us a lot of silver coins to give out. So thank you to him. But without further ado, let me bring on our guests that you absolutely are going to love. Has phenomenal information, very esoteric information, but maybe will be newsworthy one day. Let me bring on the lovely Robert Schaumburg.
Lovely. Lovely might be an overstatement. Thank you, Louis.
We are all lovely, Robert. So beautiful to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Wow. So I guess let's dig into it because the information that you gave me was honestly something I knew nothing, zero about. So it's pretty excited. And I know you want to bring to the table, I believe you want to talk about two planets and something that happened that would affect us here on Earth. Is that right?
Yeah, I would like to go into that. And that introductory song that you had threw me back to the 80s. And coincidentally, it was about in the 80s that the discussion centered on an interesting theory was floated back then, 66 million years ago. An asteroid came from the heavens and impacted the Earth and made the Earth absolutely unlivable due to the understandably disastrous, pardon the expression, impact that would have on the planet. Snuffed out all life. And I would like to go back and take a look at that. And you see, I'd like to bring back the discussion that's been had since the 80s and in more recent times by people in our truther community. And I would be drawing upon people like Alex Collier and Elena Danan. Louis, how familiar are you with Alex and Elena, just in passing here?
Oh, a little bit. I mean, their information. Alex, I know, is just putting out some new information also from what somebody just told me last night. So, and
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that community. I actually went up and visited Shasta Mountain and talked to Rob Potter for a long time and so on and so forth. So I have a little bit of knowledge, not deep though whatsoever.
No, that's okay. As long as you're aware of these people and the audience, I presume some of them are aware of
Oh
them
yeah,
as well.
probably more than me.
Yeah, I regard Alex Collier as the real deal, a quite genuine person, very down to earth, and really, really resonates with me. And I would ask people to also be patient with me if they could for a bit and with themselves and realize, we are looking at things that resonate with us in the absence of cold, hard, concrete evidence. We are given a device called a theory, which draws upon all of the tangible, ascertainable evidence, draws it all together, and offers an explanation that can be subjected to testing and the introduction of hitherto unknown facts. And whether that theory would stand or fall will remain to be seen. That's why we call it a theory. And it's actually a very powerful explanation that does have some legs to stand on. The term theory has become denigrated in recent years. Is it theory or is it fact?
Mm-hmm.
Well, gravity is a theory. May I remind everybody?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we don't really know. I'd also like to draw upon, and this is kind of exciting, actually. This is where the wheels start spinning. Many people in the audience, I think, will have seen in recent times the gentleman, Randall Carlson, who's been making the rounds. He's a rather large, garrulous man, as I realize I am myself, with a nimbus of gray hair and a beard. He's quite swarthy, very personable, very knowledgeable, super nice guy. Made an appearance on Joe Rogan, along with a gentleman named Graham Hancock. And these men have looked into our past, and they've draped their discussions over top of some evidence. And what I'm going to be drawing upon them for, I'm going to be talking about, say, Alex Collier for the so-called Andromedan evidence. He has talked about some cosmological knowledge that took place in our solar system, some of the events, in the years leading up to the times we're in now. And Randall talked about a time period which was about 12,500 years ago. He talks a lot about the Younger Dryas period. He's made that term actually a household name, I think. He's popularized it. And he's centered around the events that appear to have caused short term water damage to the surface of the Earth and the associated effects of that damage. The end of the ice age, the rise in temperature, suddenly, the mysterious rise. And he is talking from the point of view of the so called torrid meteor shower that has a recurrence interval of some, it doesn't really matter, several thousand years anyway, well beyond our time grasp here on the Earth. So, can I share my screen for a minute? Is that all right? Can we give this a go?
Please, let me ask one question on the
Go ahead.
torrid meteor shower. Is it possible that that could have contained deuterium?
Oh, that's a bit out of my wheelhouse, Lewis. Maybe,
Okay.
maybe not. I'm in no position to comment on that concretely.
Okay. Because I did an investigative documentary on deuterium, and deuterium is in all of our water around the world, generally at 155 parts per million. And that is the true life deterrent, not fluoride and not a lot of the other things we said, although those are bad as well, of course. But deuterium is in it. So that's why I was curious, because we never could figure out where it came from.
Oh, is deuterium a poison then? Like, that's my
No,
knowledge right there. I know nothing.
deuterium's actually it's an isotope that's attached to the hydrogen molecule. So it
Right.
hides really, really well. And that's why no filter can get rid of it. The only way it can get rid of is if you pour water over a surface that's freezing at 31 degrees, because it attaches to it at 31 and the rest of the water doesn't freeze until 32. So it's amazing. I didn't want to hijack this. I was just curious because I'm always trying to figure out where exactly did the deuterium come from.
That's an excellent question by the sounds of it, and we should reserve that for another discussion. But I
Sure.
think that might be containing some salient information with regard to this mystery. Who knows?
So if you
But
look on your screen, left of the settings
yeah,
wheel,
share video. Got it.
yeah, click share screen. Let's see if she's got it set up, because it's a certain yep, guest share. Look at that. Hopefully this works. Try it out and see if
Guys. So I just hit stop share and I'm going to come back and no more sharing. I want to leave it there. So what I'm saying is that there has been a lot of talk in our truther community. I've been following Alex, been following people like Elena Danan, Laura Eisenhower, and many others who have talked about our local cosmic system here, our solar system. And there's been talk about two planets that once existed but no longer are. And the names of those two planets, many of us have heard of them, and are Maldek, Maldek is the popular spelling, and Tiamat, Tiamat. I don't want to talk about these as mythological beings. I want to talk about them as simply planets and just look at a working mechanical system here. Now, what I'm saying is that there was an impact that rendered the planet Maldek, basically destroyed it and turned it into a debris field, which is the current Kuiper belt. And I'm saying that Tiamat was located at the asteroid belt, and that got destroyed by, there's talk of other ways how that might have happened in our truther community, but the method of destruction is less relevant. I'm going to talk about Maldek and how it probably met its demise. When I take a look at the solar system, there's one odd thing about it, and that is the planet Pluto. For many years, it enjoyed the status of a planet. They recently downgraded its status to that of KBO, which stands for Kuiper Belt Object. When you take a look at the planet Pluto, I'm still calling it a planet just by sheer habit, and I'm sure many of you are out there too. The orbit of Pluto is not coplanar with the other planets. In other words, you could say roll the planets around on a sheet of paper and roughly define their actual orbit around the sun, but Pluto wouldn't fit that model. Pluto's orbit is actually not contained with the rest of the other planets. It's off kilter slightly. It's at an angle of some, I don't know, 15 degrees or something like that. When I look at that, to me, that indicates that Pluto is the result of an impact, or it may be the impactor itself, impactor and impactee. I'm thinking that Maldek was out there and it got hit, and one of the resultants of that collision, if not the original impactor, is Pluto. Pluto got knocked out and is now taking up that funny orbit, which is, by the way, not only non-planar with the other planets, but it's slightly elliptical. I'll stop myself there, Lewis, and you may have a question or a comment.
Well, what I've always found interesting, and you showed it the 2D model there, that all the planets seem, and this is what you're indicating, except Pluto, seem to go around the exact same orbit, just farther out from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how it's nonsensical to me? I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It's nonsensical to me is because the sun's so big, and if the pole is still to the middle, why wouldn't we have different orbits and different angles and so on and so forth going on?
I should remind everybody, your point is taken. The diagram that I showed is totally for illustrative purposes. It's not drawn to scale or to proportion or anything like that. The one that's probably a little bit more resemblant of reality is the latter one, which shows how big the Kuiper Belt debris field actually is. But the initial diagram, no, that's just to illustrate the relative location of things. Now, I'm going to continue with my thought process here. So the impact happened with Maldek, and pieces came off it. When a planet ruptures, it's not inconceivable to imagine pieces going in all directions spherically. Mm-hmm. So what I'm thinking, and how that's linked to Earth, is 66 million years ago, I'm ascribing one of those pieces that came off that collision, and I'm saying that that's the piece that hit the Earth and caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. These are obviously time periods that are so long for us to grasp, so horrendously large. Now, the talk of the geological matters on Earth ascribes the youngest age of any mountain range to the Himalayas. They're the tallest, but they're also the youngest, and I find that dichotomy to be kind of interesting. If left to natural processes, shouldn't they also be the oldest because they've been pushed on the longest? No, it seems that they were pushed on the shortest time ago. So my theory has it that a piece that gained a very oblique orbit, Pluto's orbit is oblique by 15 degrees, perhaps the orbit was more than that, and it was captured by the gravity of the sun and made an elliptical orbit. And during that unfortunate, probably rather large piece's travels, it intercepted the Earth at that angle because something clearly hit south of India, in the ocean to the south of India, and pushed it. Because India has been subjected to tectonic motions that are out of place. They're not in keeping with the rest of the planetary equilibrium. It got extra help, and the evidence is the Himalayas are so high and the plateau is so high as well. How this ties into Alex Collier, sorry, I'm just going to do this one last thought, then you'll have a comment.
Sure.
Alex Collier stated, he talked about the Maldekians, all right? And when he said this, I thought, geez, that's weird. My mind just can't make the connection. He stated that the Maldekians have been living under Tibet for a long period of time, and they just want to be left alone. So I took that and thought, well, that's an interesting thought, but what in the heck is the connection? Why would they choose to be under Tibet? Why not go to Tahiti and put a no-fly zone? Or that would be my speed. I'd sit on the beach. But they chose to go under Tibet. The connection that I made was Maldek then had to be a colder planet, so I put it on the outer reaches of the solar system. It was probably ice covered. Something that's covered in ice, when it's impacted, a stone ball basically, like a planet is, is going to come apart more catastrophically when a impactor hits it. This is an engineering analysis now. This is evidenced by ice gripping rock on our planet and causing tremendous erosion. Ice really locks in there and rips at the rock, and has resulted in some extraordinary geological formation processes that we ascribe indeed to the Ice Age. In a short-term event like an impact of an ice-covered planet, the ice, I think, would have the effect of ripping the planet apart more readily. The Maldekians were presumably living under that ice or on that ice-covered planet. It had really hostile conditions that they were acclimatized to. And so this location was selected for them after the impact. Now, there's an absurdity there. One last quick point, Lewis. There's an absurdity there, which says, well, if Maldek got hit first, wouldn't all the Maldekians have had to been retransported to Earth maybe at a later date, or just to be safe? Some intervention would have had to happen there. So that's the stones that are uncovered more and more as you look at this theory. So I'll stop.
Well, 2 points. One, which is interesting, is I met somebody about 3 years ago, almost 4, that said that she was from planet Maldek, and the way she found out is because she didn't even know what it was. She went into a hypnotic regression therapy, and that's what came out. And she even knew that the planet blew up and everything like that, but she was extracted, who knows how many thousands of years before. I'm not quite sure, but I found that very interesting because she claimed, she goes, I didn't know what it was. I had no information. This came up under hypnosis. So that's the first time I ever heard about Maldek. Here's a question. So in the Patriot community, of course, there's, I would say, probably 50% of our audience doesn't even believe in the geocentric model, right?
Okay. I get that.
And me personally, I don't believe in the geocentric model that's been laid out, and I don't believe in the flat Earth model that's been laid out. I believe we're being pushed in that direction because it's something different. But one of the indications would be is when they say that we're traveling 66,600 miles through space. That's one. One other one would be when they say the dinosaur were made extinct 66 million years ago. I mean, these are the indications that it's a fraud. So I have a challenge with the geocentric model, and I have a challenge with the flat Earth model. I can poke holes in both of them. So, but and here's the question, could the planets still exist but be different from what we think they are in outer space and so on and so forth? What's your feeling?
Oh, certainly. Oh, Lewis, I would definitely allow for that because, look, our vantage point here on Earth is so limited, and especially due to the fact that we can't go out there into space. We haven't been able to travel out there. It's really tough to gather this info definitively and figure out what's truly going on. I'm confident, though, that in the future, all of this will be made known. We're going to, maybe sooner than we are expecting, this is all going to become public knowledge, and it's going to get aired out.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
So this is fascinating, though. Let's continue. I have a feeling this will be 2 or 3 episodes, but let's see what we can.
It could be, but I really want to whittle it down because in the interest of time, and I know everybody's busy and we don't have time for these long drawn out videos, and I get it. So with Maldek, the final point is when you look at the geological features of the planet, undersea particularly, you can see India has definitely traveled a significant distance because the ocean floor is spreading and the abyssal plains. That's right. And those undersea features. I also take a look at some feature like the Marianas Trench, and I think to myself, well, goodness me, the impactor must have been really huge to slide a whole goldarn continent to move the entire thing due to its mass and its speed. And the fact that it must have hit at an oblique angle. I'm maintaining that it hit an oblique angle, meaning it was parallel to the ground as much as possible, coming in really, really shallow. And therefore it imparted lateral velocity onto the whole thing. It was like a large lateral hit, and it pushed India northward. When I take a look at the Marianas Trench, to me that looks like the remnants of an old stress fracture that happened in the Earth's crust. That's probably coincided with a subduction zone that was already there, but it got opened up and it got made a lot deeper. A subduction zone normally doesn't do that. When we take a look at Cascadia, the entire subduction zone is a nice, neat, tucked in plate. Their plates are rubbing together, grinding together, storing a lot of energy. So to me, there are indications that there is some ancient war wounds there on our planet. I have to now jump off Maldek and go to the other one, Tiamat. Now, ancient lore has it in some cultures that when many thousands of years ago, we used to be able to look up and see what people referred to as a second sun. Maldek, or excuse me, Tiamat. Tiamat now. Tiamat was ostensibly located between Mars and Jupiter. I'm looking there at that image that I first pulled out, and that was the relative location. But there was a feature about Tiamat. It was covered in water. It was mostly a water-based world. It threw light. It reflected a lot of light for that reason, and it looked like a second sun. When we look up at the night sky, sometimes I'm really floored by how bright Venus can be, for example, with the light reflected off of it. It being so close to the sun, that's why it's so reflective due to its distance from the sun. Tiamat was reflective because it was covered in water. That's what the lore is saying out there. And again, all of this will one day be proved concretely. But I'm draping a theory based upon what I've heard. Now, Tiamat was again, you can take a look at what Elena Danan has been saying, what Alex Collier has been saying. Tiamat was destroyed. I think I'm adding this bit. In a scorched earth policy move by our aggressive alien species, I don't need to name it, it's sort of irrelevant, but if we can't have the earth, neither can you. So Tiamat was destroyed, knowing full well that a large drain effect would happen and debris, rocks, and water would come careening down onto the earth, and the earth, by its gravity, would pull in a lot of this material. 12,500 years ago, this coincided with the end of the last ice age. I'm saying that the evidence is really, a lot of it is there, and Randall and that other gentleman have both been looking at it, and they've been airing it out publicly for the general public to see. But take a look at features like the Grand Canyon. To me, I'm not going to maybe get into the reasons, but that looks like a short-term erosion event. Great Salt Lake, how on earth did all that salt water get so far inland on such a high plane, at such a high elevation? When you take a look at those two features alone, and let's stick to those two alone, just in the continental US. Randall also likes to talk about the Badlands that were kind of at the US-Canadian border, roughly defined by the Columbia River drainage basin, and the huge outflow of water that resulted from that, not only from the meltwater, but also from additional water that came in from somewhere and caused a tremendous deluge. The water from the Grand Canyon ostensibly ran westward. It ran from the high point to the low point, which was at the ocean perimeter. Monterey Bay has some interesting features that are currently underwater, and these are canyons that were eroded. It looks to me like runoff, water running off violently, very quickly, lots of it. And it ran and it created these two canyons hewn right into the rock as the water drained into the ocean. I'm hearing also of an oceanic rise of some 100 meters from that entire event. Anywhere you look on the planet, the planet is dotted with these, looks like there was a really violent, huge runoff of water there at some point. You can take a look at the lands to the east of Egypt, for example. I was looking at that recently. And to me, that looks like a bunch of bedrock, underlying rock was exposed and scoured with the overlying sands were blasted clean from the surface by the water crashing into the planet's surface. And indeed, a lot of ancient societies have stuck to this explanation. I happened upon, you can actually find it if you want to go digging. There's a really nice video out there called The Last Druid, and it's an interview that was done, I would say, in the late 80s, probably in the 90s, with a gentleman living in Ireland named Ben McBrady. And it was called The Last Druid, and his friends simply called him the Druid. And as far as he knew, he seemed very sincere, down-to-earth, genuine guy, living in much obscurity. They interviewed him, and he seemed to be the last of an ancient order that was thousands of years old, and he referred to it as the Old Gaelic Order. And in that video, he talked about the cataclysm where meteors, rocks, and water came down from the sky, and the people were constructing shelters for themselves because this didn't all happen in one event. It must have had a recurrence interval and kept happening over years and years. It must have been a deluge, and it must have frightened the people something awful who were living at the time. If you listen to his words from his own mouth talking about that information that has been handed down age after age after age, and he was the last beneficiary of that line. And he stated that there is no more need for the existence of the order, but a spiritual revolution is called for it. I thought that was remarkably prescient of a man in the 90s saying that. I'll stop there, Lewis. Sorry, I charged on there.
No, it's fascinating. So it sounds like you're indicating that all of those geological changes were more an event than a long-term situation, geological, which I think is just
Could be.
amazing. Yeah, and it actually makes sense if you actually physically, which I've looked at many of these. I've driven to them in my tour. So that's fascinating. We have a few more minutes. Is there anything else you want to go into? And we're definitely in favor of bringing you back on another show in the future. Just so you know.
Thanks very much. I'll just touch back briefly, if I may, on the Maldek issue. Maldek's impact was a really big deal on our planet. It convulsed our planet, and if you can appreciate a very large mass being introduced to the surface of our planet that's rotating, it's got a rotational stability, and this thing comes along and suddenly puts that stability out of whack. It's like dropping a single drop of sandy glue onto the surface of a spinning cue ball on a pool table. It's going to go out of whack, and the Earth was indeed in a lot of distress. I'm saying my intuition is projecting this, okay? This is intuition, guys. Don't beat me up too badly. I'm saying that intervention happened and the Earth was given first aid. Initially, that first aid consisted of bringing in a moon to act in opposition to balance out the gravitational pull of this item that had been introduced to the Earth's surface and stabilize the spinning of the Earth. But as an engineer, I also know about a phenomenon called resonance, and I know that the Earth had ostensibly a scar in its face, a hole in its face, and vibration, excessive vibration, would hurt that. It would potentially rip it apart. I don't know, I wasn't there. I'm just allowing for the possibility. So what happened to the Earth, and this is really the meat of the matter, this is what really interests me. I believe the Earth was placed into a kind of stasis. The Earth's rotation was stopped artificially, and it was spun the other way so that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It's all we've ever known since time immemorial. We never dreamed of it being any other way. It's been like that for 66 million years or thereabouts, just to save the planet. What that did is by rotating against the subtle direction, which is the natural direction of rotation in the cosmos, the vibration of the Earth was reduced. It was reduced to a lower state of vibration, hence it isn't going to resonate as badly. Hence it isn't going to put that crustal shell of the egg into distress. And the time is coming now to replace that, to put it back. TIAMAT resulted, just 10 seconds, TIAMAT resulted in, there was no longer any need by the time TIAMAT happened to have such a moon. So again, I'm going along with Alex Collier here. An artificial moon was brought in at that time for a different purpose entirely. That moon created another type of stasis. It created I'm going to use this word, it sounds a bit crude, a jail of a very highly powered magnetic field, which was designed to trap the remnants of that regressive race that were holed up on Earth after that war that took place in our solar system. They were holed up here, and the Van Allen bands were constructed and placed to hold them until the benevolent species could replenish their numbers, rebuild, recuperate from the war, which was very damaging on both sides, until they could return. And now we're where we're at today. The Galactic Federation is here. I'm stepping out, Lewis, and I'm maintaining that. I've got some arguments as to why I believe that is the case. And again, I'm draping that on some good evidence about the Galactic Federation, why they're here this present day, and why I think that in order to go back to 5D and join the rest of the cosmos, we're in for a huge event, which involves the slowing down, stopping, and reversal of the Earth's rotation to put us back into 5D.
Interesting. Real quick,
Mic
I,
drop.
yeah, that was a pretty good mic. So I hear there's a Galactic Federation and Galactic Alliance, and one is controlled opposition and one is not. Have you heard anything about that before?
There's much disinformation roiling around about who and what is what, and it's tough to get discerning evidence. And so what I've decided to do is I've decided to focus on the people who, like yourself, who resonate with me. You're a sympathetic person. You don't rub me the wrong way. Alex Collier doesn't rub me the wrong way either. And I listen to people like that who I resonate with. And as far as I'm concerned, he's the genuine article. The man has a heart as big as all outdoors. He's totally legit, and I believe he's telling us the truth. And that is a bit of a leap of faith, isn't it? In the absence of a reproducible evidence event that we could all have a written report and we can have a nice big cup of coffee and read through. Until that day, this is what we have.
Well, the beauty is really what I believe ascension is all about. It's what's between our ears, not physically. And when we get to that point of ascension, our discernment should be a lot bigger than evidence, anyways. Our discernment should be a lot more powerful when we get to that point. Some are more evolved than that than others at this point, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And the faculties of discernment are there. You can look at things that come your way and what resonates with you. Exercise your faculty of discernment. It doesn't just pop up out of it on its own. It's grown up from good hard knowledge. So a lot of years of research and being honest with oneself. Hey, I'm probably wrong about this one. Maybe I should drop it, and just be open to being proven wrong. And that's hard. That's not a pleasant process.
Yeah,
But it can yield some great things.
I agree. Robert, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for stopping by. I'm sure we'll be talking soon in the future. And folks, for you that are watching, I'm not going to play the standard outro today. We will continue that. But today, it's all about the Unity Tour. So God bless everybody. Good night.